Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 21. The Swamp Leviathan. Ethan knelt over the pile of loot on the ground, rummaging through it casually until his fingers brushed a ring. He inspected it briefly, confirming it was a perception-boosting accessory. No wonder Birdsore had managed to locate him earlier. Sliding the ring onto his finger, Ethan tossed the shield from the loot pile to the side. "Tell Skyblade to switch to a shield tank," he said bluntly, his tone leaving no room for debate. He remembered how, in his previous life, Skyblade had regretted choosing the Weapon Master class. Toward the late game, Skyblade had been envious of shield tanks who could stand on the front line, leading entire raid parties. Unfortunately, the stat allocation system didn't allow for a reset. Even if a player's level dropped back to 1, their stat points would slowly revert to the previous build over time. Ethan glanced at the corpses of Birdsore and his party, now dissolved into white light. They had likely respawned at the nearest revival point in the city. Seeing no immediate threats to the rest of Slashblade's group, Ethan activated stealth and slipped into the shadows, continuing toward his destination. Meanwhile, Slashblade and the Paladin were left standing amidst the scattered loot, momentarily stunned. "All he took was a ring?" the Paladin muttered, surprised. "And he just tossed out a shield, telling Skyblade to switch classes. Is he advising us?" Slashblade added. The duo exchanged puzzled glances. Was this person insane, or just too rich to care about such valuable loot? Either way, his earlier behavior, mercilessly slaughtering Birdsore's team, hinted at something darker. A lunatic, perhaps. Whatever the case, Slashblade knew one thing for certain. They had hit the jackpot. Not only could they recover Skyblade's losses, but they could even turn a tidy profit from the surplus gear. As Slashblade began gathering the scattered items, a thought crossed his mind. The brothers he had to care for, the families of his fallen comrades, they all depended on him. Money wasn't just important. It was everything. Ethan, on the other hand, was nearing his target coordinates. He checked the minimap to confirm. This is the place. Standing at the base of a winding mountain trail, Ethan deactivated stealth and broke into a sprint, his speed pushed to its limit. The trail climbed steeply, zigzagging toward the summit. It wasn't long before he reached the edge of a cliff. Below lay a vast swamp, with crumbling high-rises draped in vines visible in the distance. This had once been a bustling metropolis, reduced to a decaying wasteland. The swamp itself had been the city's sewage treatment facility. The mountain he now stood upon was a former landfill site, thrust skyward during the planetary collision that reshaped the world. Ethan recalled learning these details from a map description added in a later update. As he walked along the cliff's edge, scanning the swamp below, his gaze locked onto a metallic pole resembling a lightning rod. Stopping beneath it, he muttered to himself, "This is the spot. Last time, I fell here and died." Shifting into his panther form, Ethan adjusted his stance carefully. He backed up a few steps, measuring the distance before leaping off the edge. This wasn't a reckless act. 20 meters below the cliff was a small ledge, just half a meter wide. He had discovered it in his past life when a pursuer's attack sent him tumbling to his death. To his surprise, the ledge overlooked the hunting grounds of a hidden boss. Beneath that ledge lay the hunting grounds of the Swamp Leviathan, the ultimate boss of the starter zone. The Swamp Leviathan was a level 20 boss, a treasure trove for new players. It dropped silver-tier weapons usable by any class and with no level restrictions. Despite their low entry requirements, these weapons boasted attributes equivalent to genuine level 20 silver-tier equipment, making them a dream for early game players. Better yet, the Leviathan's loot included weapons with guaranteed fixed damage bonuses, a rarity. Players often wore these weapons well beyond level 20, as their performance rivaled even level 80 common iron gear or level 60 bronze tier gear. But there was a catch. The Swamp Leviathan only respawned when the servers rebooted, meaning players had one shot per day to claim its loot. Apart from weapons, it also dropped rare skill books, a treasure trove for anyone lucky enough to land a kill. In his previous life, the Swamp Leviathan had been one of the most sought-after bosses. Even in the late game, high-level players camped its spawn point, as it was the only silver-tier weapon that could be acquired with relative ease. Many casual players kept these weapons well past level 100 due to their versatility. The area around the Leviathan had been a chaotic warzone. Players killed each other relentlessly, leaving the swamp littered with bodies and gear. The situation became so bad that Aeon Corporation had eventually patched the game, barring players over level 15 from returning to the starter zones. Even after that, low-level players fought tooth and nail for the Leviathan. Every spawn resulted in dozens of deaths, and the collected loot often surpassed the value of the boss's weapon. Each day, one lucky victor would walk away with a fortune. But killing the swamp Leviathan wasn't the hardest part, nor was fending off competing players. The real challenge was reaching it. The swamp below was filled with level 15 lesser crocodiles, passive creatures that posed no immediate threat unless disturbed. However, their sheer numbers were a nightmare. Step on one by accident, and it would let out a roar, alerting every crocodile within a 10x 10-meter radius. A single misstep could awaken hundreds of them, resulting in a gruesome and immediate death. To make matters worse, any player killed in the swamp had their body classified as destroyed. Resurrection at the nearest graveyard was the only option, which came with a level drop and a debilitating weakened status. It effectively removed them from the competition for the boss. Ethan's body descended rapidly, his eyes fixed on the narrow outcropping below. As he approached, he switched to his owl form and activated Wingbeat, using it to steady his glide. Pressing himself against the cliff face, he managed to avoid drifting too far off course. With his heart pounding, Ethan landed on the ledge with a soft thud. He exhaled deeply in relief. If his jump had been even slightly off, he would have plummeted directly onto the Leviathan's back. A guaranteed death sentence. Finally, his feet touched solid ground. Relief washed over him. The ledge's position was perfect, hidden from view unless someone stood directly on it. From here, he could see the swamp Leviathan below, slumbering in the shallow swamp. Ethan's lips curled into a smirk. This discovery had been his alone in his past life. By the time others found it, he'd already profited enough to move on to higher-level zones. The massive creature lay coiled in its muddy lair, its thick scales glinting faintly. With a health pool of over 40,000, it was no pushover. Ethan checked his spell rotation. With all his available spells, he could deal fixed damage per second, regardless of the target's defense. Combined with Ethereal's guarantee that spells always hit their target, it would take hours to whittle the boss down, but it was doable. Ethan glanced at the in-game clock. It was just past midnight. 7 hours remained before the server shut down, more than enough time for the kill. Ethan cast his first spell, Moonfire, followed by Sunburn. The effects stacked immediately, and he began spamming Lunar Beam. The swamp Leviathan roared, its body shaking as it rose, locking its gaze on Ethan. It lunged toward him, massive limbs creating tremors with each step. But the ledge was out of reach. It tried to climb the cliff, standing on its hind legs to roar in frustration. Even at full height, it was still meters below Ethan. Completely unfazed, Ethan continued casting Lunar Beam repeatedly. He didn't bother keeping track of his balance bar, which shifted between lunar and solar energy. Every cast inflicted at least 1 point of damage, regardless of alignment, so he saw no need to overthink it. Minutes passed. Then Ethan noticed something strange. His mana bar had dipped slightly. Ha! He paused mid-cast and switched to Solar Flare. His mana stopped decreasing. Testing further, Ethan realized the issue. When the balance meter tipped toward lunar energy, casting lunar spells consumed mana. But when balanced or leaning solar, they were free. Understanding dawned. The balance meter wasn't just for show. It was a core mechanic for sustain. By keeping both energies equal, he could avoid draining his mana entirely. Adjusting his rotation, Ethan recalculated his kill time. With Solar Flare taking 1.5 seconds per cast instead of 1, he worried he might run out of time. But as long as he kept his balance, he'd make it. Chapter 22. A woman's beauty doesn't matter. Ethan checked the timer. He calculated quickly and sighed with relief. It should be enough. The last thing he wanted was to get booted offline mid-battle when the game's mandatory rest period hit. That would be a waste. Although bosses didn't regenerate health overnight, leaving the job half-finished would mean losing an entire refresh cycle. If he finished the kill today, tomorrow's server reset would spawn a fresh one. Ethan kept hammering away, mindlessly grinding through the same repetitive motions. Thankfully, he was using the system's free beginner skills. If he had to chant spells and trace hand gestures for every cast, he'd have gone insane. Bored out of his mind, Ethan opened his friend list and sent a video call request to Lila. The screen flickered, and her familiar face appeared. Her attention was elsewhere, though, her focus entirely on the game. Ethan couldn't help but stare, momentarily distracted by her profile. Lila had chosen the elf race. The pointed ears suited her delicate, sweet features, giving her an ethereal beauty that made her character look like it had stepped out of a fairy tale. Curiosity got the better of him. "Lila, what are you up to?" "I'm leveling up, duh." "Phew. Finally killed it." Lila spun around to face him, dimples flashing as she grinned. Ethan caught a glimpse of her surroundings. She was grinding in a level 5 area. "Wait. You didn't go to that spot I told you about?" Lila launched another volley of arrows before replying, her hands busy. "I did. Took down that Wolf King Hossman. Took 2 hours. So boring. And it drained my wallet. I'm nearly out of money for arrows." Ethan sighed. Not everyone could tolerate the soul-crushing grind. He could hardly blame her. After all, here he was wasting time on a video call instead of focusing. "What level are you now? Did it drop anything good?" Ethan asked, knowing that Hossman, a level 5 leader tier boss, had a guaranteed first kill drop. "I'm almost level 6. The kill boosted me by 2.5 levels. Oh, and check this out." Lila held up a silver bow shimmering faintly under the in-game sunlight. Its elegant, wing-like design curved into a graceful arc. Ethan whistled. "A silver weapon for your class? Damn, you're lucky." He wasn't exaggerating either. For a beginner, managing to solo a leader-tier boss, even with guidance, was impressive. His praise made Lila's cheeks turn red, and she shot him a playful glare. The teasing look sent Ethan's heart racing. He quickly covered it with a joke. "All right, back to it. Don't go shooting random teammates again. I only misfired because you distracted me," she hissed in a whisper, glancing nervously at her party. Her earlier accidental shot had drawn some good-natured grumbling from one of them. Ethan couldn't stop laughing. Sure. Jealous of their beauty, weren't you? That might have been deliberate." "Humph. I'm ending the call." Lila cut him off with a mock glare before shutting down the video call. Smirking, Ethan turned back to his own grind. With Lila close to level 6, he couldn't afford to slack off. His XP bar sat at 98% toward level 5. He opened the leaderboard. His name still topped the charts, with the second-place player trailing at level 4 with 70% progress. Of course, these rankings were only temporary, limited to the starter zone. The leaderboard would expand to regional statistics once the first player left the zone, eventually unlocking a national ranking system after the first major faction war. Ethan eyed the names below his own. None rang a bell. From what he remembered, Zone 1314 hadn't produced any standout players in his previous life. Ding! You have a new friend request. Please check. A system notification popped up. Curious, he opened it. It was a friend request from Skyblade. Ethan hesitated for a moment before accepting. He wasn't exactly surprised. Being the only druid in Zone 1314 made it pretty obvious who he was. A message followed almost immediately. Skyblade. "Hey! Legend. Why'd you tell me to switch to a shield tank?" Ethan winced at the title. Legend. Everyone had called him that during his first life, at least in the early days. Later, most people couldn't wait to see him fail. Ethan replied curtly, "Follow your instincts." It wasn't like he had a personal vendetta against Skyblade playing something else. In his previous life, he'd just gotten tired of hearing Skyblade complain nonstop and had offhandedly suggested the change. "All right, I'll do it. Shield tank it is," Skyblade replied. Ethan was about to suggest that Skyblade think it over more carefully when another message popped up. Skyblade, we're setting up a guild. Wanna join? The words hit Ethan like déjà vu. Skyblade had said the exact same thing to him in his past life. Back then, Ethan had been a rogue, and their initial encounter hadn't exactly been friendly. Skyblade had been flirting shamelessly with a girl who looked less than appealing. Ethan, thoroughly disgusted, had almost punched him. Somehow, that had evolved into Skyblade tagging along and dragging Ethan into his guild plans. The timing had been different, though. Last time, this hadn't happened until most players reached level 10. Why the sudden rush this time? And back then, Skyblade's crew didn't include Slashblade either. Was his rebirth already causing ripple effects? After a moment's thought, Ethan replied, "Fine, but the guild name can't be Avalon Vanguard, and I'm the leader. Also, are you about to ask me for money? Skyblade froze when he read the message. Leo, what's up? Did the guy say yes? Asked Williams, the paladin in their group, jabbing Skyblade's side. Slashblade leaned over, equally curious. Without a word, Skyblade shared Ethan's response in their party chat. For a moment, all three stared blankly at the screen. Just minutes ago, they'd been brainstorming their guild name and settled on Avalon Vanguard. They had marched straight to the guild registration hall, only to discover it cost 5 gold coins to register a guild. Pooling their funds had left them with less than 1 gold coin. That was when Williams had suggested sending Skyblade to sweet-talk Ethan into joining them. At first, Skyblade had refused outright, but then Slashblade, with a threatening expression, leaned in and said, "You'll go, or I'll have my sister come and deal with you personally." Skyblade froze. He didn't need the reminder of just how terrifying Slashblade's sister could be. Sure, her curves were impossible to ignore, generous in all the right places, but everything else about her made him want to bolt. Built like a tank and radiating an aura of sheer dominance, she was more than just intimidating. She was suffocating. To Skyblade, beauty was a fleeting distraction, easily erased when the lights went out. But curves? Curves had staying power. They had a certain utility, an undeniable allure that transcended fear. Yet even his steadfast motto felt shaky when it came to her. Chapter 23, Renegade Alliance. The three men stared at Ethan's message, speechless for a solid minute. It was Williams who finally broke the silence, slapping Slashblade lightly on the shoulder and exclaiming, "Did I just see wrong?" Slashblade nodded solemnly. "You saw it right. Holy crap, he's not just a pro. Is he a goddamn deity or something?" Williams shouted, his shock bubbling over. "Must have been dumb luck," Skyblade muttered, finally snapping out of his stupor. "Why don't you try getting lucky like that?" Slashblade shot back. Ding. "You have received new message." Just as the group was scrambling for what to do next, Skyblade noticed a system notification pop up. The message read, "Let's call it the Renegade Alliance." Attached to it were 5 gold coins. Sender, not a druid. Ethan smirked as he sent off the message, then refocused on his grinding. The massive swamp leviathan bellowed in frustration, slamming its head into the rocky walls of the ridge. It was down to half health now, but it was already 3:45 a.m. Ethan's bloodshot eyes betrayed how long he had been at this, mindlessly repeating the same attack pattern like a machine. Finally, at 7:30 a.m., the Leviathan let out a deafening death cry. His body collapsed, belly up, lifeless. Ding. You have slain the Swamp Leviathan. Overlevel kill bonus. 3000% experience boost. You have earned 124,000 XP. Base XP, 2000. Overlevel bonus, 60,000. Ability growth bonus, 62,000. A cascade of golden light enveloped Ethan, signaling 5 consecutive level-ups. He was now level 10 with 78% of the experience bar already filled. Ding. Global announcement. Congratulations on achieving the world's first kill of a level 20 field boss. Swamp Leviathan. Would you like to hide your character name? Hide it. Ethan confirmed without hesitation. More notifications followed in rapid succession, each carrying a reward he had long anticipated. As the Leviathan's massive corpse dissolved into faint light, it left behind a shimmering staff, 2 skill books, and several reinforcement stones. Ethan hovered down gracefully using wing beat, avoiding the swamp's waters. No lesser crocodiles in sight. Good. He didn't want to risk stepping on one. Landing near the loot, Ethan quickly swept it up. A silver tier staff, 2 skill books, precision block and rapid fire barrage, 14 reinforcement stones, and 1 gold, 52 silver coins. Not bad. Even though the skill books weren't useful for him, precision block would be perfect for Skyblade's shield class, and rapid fire barrage? That was going straight to Lila. It was an advanced skill book with an abysmally low drop rate. In his last life, even players above level 100 who specialized in the archer class rarely got their hands on it. If this book were sold after the game opened up its currency exchange system in the future, it could easily fetch $150,000. Right now it was worth even more. But for Lila, the woman he had sworn to protect, this amount meant nothing. Ethan shook his head at the thought of his past self. Back then, he had barely managed to scrape by. Even during his time at the top, all he'd cared about was the game itself, completely oblivious to the potential for profit. By the time he tried to make real money, it was too late, he'd already fallen from grace. Snapping back to the present, Ethan opened his inventory and attached Precision Block to a message for Skyblade. As for Rapid Fire Barrage, he'd deliver it to Lila in person after leaving the starter zone. The in-game message system only worked within the starter zone, a convenience that didn't exist in the main game. No cross-zone mail. No exceptions. Ah, thanks, Legend. Skyblade sent him a quick message, brimming with gratitude. Ethan chuckled to himself but didn't bother replying. He guessed the messages he had sent earlier had completely shocked them, making them think he was some sort of psychic who could foretell the future. With a grin, he opened his inbox to claim the first kill rewards. As expected, the notifications didn't disappoint. System notification. First kill rewards claimed. Starter zone first kill, 3 silver coins. Regional first kill, 3 gold coins. National first kill, 30 gold coins. Global first kill, 300 gold coins. The total was 3 times the reward of the level 5 boss. But beyond the gold, there were no extra items this time. It seemed bonus loot from first kills was randomized. Ethan's eyes practically sparkled as he stared at the hefty 333 gold coins. He could almost feel the weight of it in his hands. I wonder if Trusty 007 can handle this much, he mused. That guy was likely still struggling to offload the 100 gold Ethan sold him earlier. Hardly anyone in the starter zone had enough to spend at this stage of the game. But Ethan decided to hang on to the coins for now. Who knows when I might need it, he reasoned. Even if it devalued, it was better to be prepared, especially with the expenses of maintaining a guild. Next, he pulled out the Wishbound relic and upgraded the new silver tier weapon straight to +14. Primal War Staff +14. Grade Silver. Required level, none. Attack, 182 to 247. Base, 76 to 103. Enhancement, +106 to 144. Special attribute. Adds true damage equal to player level times 2 per hit. Enhancement, level 10 bonus mastery +2. Faction restriction. Survivor. Class restriction. Mage, Warlock, Priest, Druid. Holding the weapon in his hand, Ethan's confidence surged. Its damage potential, paired with its true damage attribute, would skyrocket his efficiency. Even if it couldn't bypass the defense of tougher monsters, the added true damage alone would let him farm at 20 times his current speed. At level 10, the bonus was already 20 true damage per attack. In 3 more days, Ethan was determined to break out of the starter zone. In his past life, the fastest player had managed the feat in 11 days. This time, Ethan was set on smashing that record. With a glance at the clock, he saw only 10 minutes left until the server shut down. Ethan returned to the cliff where he'd discovered the hidden platform. Jumping with precision, he landed exactly where he intended. Thanks to his earlier attempt, he nailed it on the first try. This spot will do. He logged out. Ethan emerged from the VR capsule and wandered to Lila's room. The soft hum of the machine confirmed she was still logged in. Without disturbing her, he headed downstairs, washed up, and stepped outside the villa. For reasons he couldn't explain, he felt a sudden urge to jog. Ethan began with a slow pace around the villa complex, gradually speeding up. To his astonishment, he didn't feel the slightest fatigue, even after several laps. What the? Since when do I have this kind of stamina? He wondered. After college, he had become a recluse, a professional shut-in. Running even a single lap in the past would have left him gasping for air. He pushed himself to go faster, running like the wind until the 12th lap, when his energy finally waned. Slowing to a stop, Ethan took deep breaths of the crisp evening air. His body's transformation stunned him. He could barely remember the last time he'd felt this alive. How is this possible? He murmured, baffled. But as the realization set in, a small smile tugged at his lips. No matter the reason, being able to run, truly run, felt incredible. For a moment, memories of his past life flooded his mind. The endless nights confined to a wheelchair after losing his legs above the knees. The days spent disconnected from hope, dreading the moments outside the game. Never again, Ethan vowed. That life was gone forever. Chapter 24. Global Frenzy. Ethan took a break to catch his breath when his phone buzzed. Pulling it from his pocket, the caller ID showed Lila. He smiled, answering with a relaxed tone. Where'd you disappear to? Lila's voice rang out on the other end. What, worried I ran away? Ethan teased, starting his walk back toward the villa. Humph, breakfast's ready. Come eat if you want. Lila snapped back playfully before hanging up. Back at the villa, the dining table was laden with a perfectly plated breakfast. After eating with Lila and enjoying her company, the rest of the day melted into an endless spree of wandering through shops. By the time the game servers were set to open in the evening, Ethan was already feeling the weight of exhaustion. Collapsing into his VR capsule, he exhaled deeply. Shopping all day, I swear. Why do women never get tired of it? Once logged back in, he was still standing on the swamp platform, where the swamp leviathan had just respawned. Without hesitation, Ethan threw 2 spells at the creature. -1. -20. He felt the satisfying effect of true damage firsthand, enhancing the spells. This caused a wide grin to appear on his face. Ding! You've defeated the swamp leviathan. Bonus for overlevel combat. Plus 1,500% EXP gain. Reward, 64,000 EXP. Base, 2,000. Overlevel bonus, 30,000. Unique talent growth bonus, 32,000. A vibrant glow enveloped Ethan as 2 golden rings of light lifted him to level 12, with 1% progress on his next bar. Yesterday, my damage peaked at 180 per minute, Ethan mused. Today, it's soaring over 3,700 in the same time frame. However, the smaller level gap meant less bonus EXP for overlevel kills. Still, this time it took less than 20 minutes to take down the swamp leviathan, a massive improvement in efficiency. Using the wingbeat skill to descend, Ethan collected a silver tier one-handed sword, a gold coin, and 11 reinforcement stones from the fallen beast. While druids could wield a wide variety of weapons, items like one-handed swords, hammers, bows, crossbows, and shields were incompatible with the class. Without hesitation, Ethan used all 11 reinforcement stones, upgrading his staff to plus 25. He took a moment to check his current stats. Not a druid. Race human. Level 12. Faction. Survivor. Bloodline. King of Elves. Divine. Strength. 60. Growth Index. 20. Enhances physical attack. Intelligence. 60. Growth Index. 20. Increases magical attack and mana pool. Agility. 60. Growth Index. 20. Improves attack speed, movement speed, and energy recovery. Stamina. 60. Growth Index. 20. Boosts defense. Vitality. 60. Growth Index. 20. Expands health capacity. Enhanced stats. Omni +2, Mastery +4, Critical +4, Haste +3. Attack power, 330 to 491. Defense, 126 to 228. Health, 1,200. Free stat points 0. Experience, 1,211/44,000. Skills, Basic Appraisal. Analyze monsters up to 5 levels higher. Equipment, Weapon, Primal Warstaff Leviathan, plus 25. Bracelet, Blazing Bracelet plus 30. Rings, Ring of True Sight, Ring of Detection. Helmet, Pilot's Hood. Chest, Pilot's Vest. Pants, Pilot's Leather Pants. Gloves, Pilot's Gloves. Boots, Pilot's Boots. The slots for shoulders, wrists, belt, and necklace were still empty. Ethan couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Most players my level would be lucky to deal even a quarter of my damage. Enhanced attributes in the game became accessible after upgrading bronze tier or higher gear to plus 10, plus 20, or plus 30. Bronze gear provided plus 1, silver plus 2, and so on. For instance, Omni, which had gotten when he hit plus 10 for the bracelet. Critical hits were straightforward. Each point increased crit chance by 0.3%. Haste was split into physical and magical bonuses. 1 point added a 0.3% boost to attack speed for physical classes or casting speed for magic users. Mastery was a bit more complex, especially for druids, since it changed based on forms. Panther form, plus 1% to bleed and finishing move damage for every point. Owl form, plus 1% to astral damage. As for the other forms, Ethan didn't know yet. In his previous life, druids were so rare that few players even managed to equip reinforced gear. Ethan could already start the quest to unlock bear form, but he decided not to waste time. Getting out of the starter zone as soon as possible was his priority. That's where the real game began. Shifting into his druid form, Ethan sprinted forward. With his agility stat, his base movement speed in human form was already at 106%. After transforming into panther form, it surged to 136%, making him absurdly fast. Most players received a 0.1% speed boost for every 2 agility points. Thanks to Ethan's divine growth, each point of his agility provided a 0.1% boost. Ethan's goal was simple: claim the first kills on both the level 10 and level 15 starter zone bosses. The gold rewards were nothing to scoff at. When he arrived at the Spectral Wolf's level 15 spawn zone, a system message popped up. Incoming message from Skyblade. Hey, is that you at the top of the rankings? Ethan had hidden his character name, but the leaderboard in Zone 1314 showed a level 12 player at the top. The second place player was barely level 5. Speculation exploded in the global chat. Even Skyblade wasn't entirely sure it was Ethan. He wasn't the only one wondering. The situation was causing ripples not just in Zone 1314 but worldwide. An 8th level European player, a paladin from the Survivor faction, posted, "What? Someone's already level 12? How's that even possible?" A 7th level Japanese player with twin blades from the Carnage faction chimed in, "No way, I'm losing to a bunch of noobs. Must be some kind of cheat or perhaps a bug." A Korean necromancer at level 7, also Carnage faction, confidently declared, "That player? Probably one of us. Koreans always dominate at this. They're definitely grinding out of Dragonspire." Meanwhile, a hulking shield tank, Survivor faction, muttered in a heavy accent before typing, "Hey, whoever you are, you're sitting on some kind of trick for leveling. Don't keep it to yourself. Spill it." Dragonspire Starter Zone 1. A 9th level archer had just brought down a massive level 12 savage bear. Checking his private messages, he muttered, "Interesting," before preparing to kite his next target. His strategy was simple: stay mobile and out of melee range while whittling down enemies. Though his damage numbers were low, often single digits, his arrows inflicted bonus true damage and applied various debuffs like slow effects. Had Ethan been there to witness this, he would have cursed the extravagance. Archers were known to be the fastest solo leveling class, but only for those with money. High-tier arrows with additional true damage and debuff effects came at a steep price. Even the most basic enhancement arrows cost 5 silver coins per barrel, each containing 1,000 arrows, but their damage was mediocre. This archer's attacks, however, packed an additional 100 true damage per shot. While not the best on the market, such arrows still cost at least 5 gold coin per barrel. Every shot cost roughly 5 copper coins, that's $9 in USD per shot. It was as if the player were burning cash for fun. This particular individual had single-handedly driven the gold to silver exchange rate in Dragonspire's Eastern Zone starter area to a jaw-dropping $1,000 for a single silver coin. This was the infamous legend known as Feather. In Ethan's previous life, a pretty renowned group of people had mocked his methods, spreading rumors that he was a pay-to-win pincushion. The insult was short-lived. Feather had tracked down his critics, hunting and forcing them back to the starter zone. This had caused everyone to revere him as the god of arrows. Chapter 25, Into the Fray. Just as Ethan was about to respond to Skyblade's message, his interface chimed with a cascade of notifications. He opened his friends list and nearly groaned at the sight. His friend request inbox had exploded. Without hesitation, Ethan toggled on the auto-decline friend requests function and wiped the slate clean. By now, he had long set his privacy settings to block private messages from anyone who wasn't already on his friends list. Denied a direct way to contact him, these people resorted to flooding him with friend requests instead. Most of them were players from Zone 1314. They must have guessed the mysterious leaderboard ranker was him and were trying to confirm it. Ethan sighed and opened the rankings panel, switching his visibility setting to hidden. This action caused a huge reaction from the world chat. Anonymous. "Hey, that level 12 guy just disappeared from the list." Anonymous. "Yeah, what's happening? You think he exploited some glitch and got banned?" Anonymous. "Serves him right for showing off. Ban him for eternity." Anonymous. "I'm telling you, it's that druid guy. He must have glitched his way into the starter zone." Reading the world chat made Ethan roll his eyes. "Idiots," he muttered to himself. "You don't even realize that hiding from the rankings is a privilege reserved for top players. That's what we call staying low profile." After handling the notifications, Ethan couldn't be bothered to reply to Skyblade. Instead, he focused on the spectral wolf in front of him. Basic appraisal. Corrupted Spectral Wolf. Class Common. Level 15. HP. 2400. Attack. 68 to 118. Defense. 59 to 98. Ability. Swift Stride. Increases movement speed by 70% for 10 seconds. Cooldown. 1 minute. Description. A relentless minion of the dark world. No prey escapes its pursuit. Ethan frowned, recalling that the Wolf King also had the Swift Stride skill. He had originally planned to kite the boss using speed, wearing it down slowly. That tactic might not work here. He'd have to reconsider. Well, while he was here, he might as well grind. These spectral wolves may have been 3 levels above him, boosting their defense by 1.5 times, but his almost 500 attack power was more than enough to break through. As for their attacks, it was quite laughable. A 3-level gap might triple their critical hit rate, but Ethereal's crit multiplier was only 1.5x. Even at their best, they couldn't scratch his defenses. With a predatory grin, Ethan muttered, "Let's go big." In an instant, his form shifted into that of a panther. Without hesitation, he lunged straight into the pack of spectral wolves. The wolves exploded into a frenzy. Howls filled the night as the pack descended upon him. He glanced back to see a swarm of over 10 wolves hot on his heels, some activating Swift Stride to snap at him relentlessly. Their bites barely grazed his 1,200 HP, chipping away tiny slivers at a time, utterly insignificant. Ethan darted left and right, controlling the group's positioning. Then, shifting again into his owl form, he unleashed Sunburn into the heart of the pack. A vibrant 3x3 zone of burning flames engulfed the spectral wolves, applying a burn debuff. Sunburn. Deals burn damage equal to 35% of player attack power every second for 26 seconds. A cascade of damage floated above the wolves. -31. -24. -31. -24. With each tick, an additional true damage of 24 points stacked on. In his owl form, Ethan's defensive stats rose by 36%, making him untouchable. The only downside? Casting spells left him stationary. He gritted his teeth and stood his ground, layering Lunar Beam on each wolf. Switching back to panther form, he dashed through the pack, raking them with Rend to stack true damage. Unfortunately, Rend consumed 35 energy per cast, draining him after only 3 uses. Frustrated, Ethan abandoned the move. 30 seconds later, the pack lay scattered across the ground, defeated. A flood of plus 300 XP notifications filled his interface. Checking his health, Ethan noted he'd lost over 400 points. Despite his high defense, sheer numbers still wore him down, ticking away 10 points per second from minor hits. Ethan frowned, realizing the train-pulling method wasn't efficient against corrupted spectral wolves. Their high movement speed made it hard to gather them into a proper group for grinding. He'd need to find slower monsters to execute this strategy effectively. He scavenged the fallen wolves, pocketing a handful of single copper coins and tattered pelts. Though he had over 300 gold in his inventory, a huge fortune, it felt wrong to leave behind even small gains. A man who knows the value of every penny is a wise man. Every coin counts. While rummaging through one of the larger wolf corpses, something caught his eye. A book. A grin spread across his face. Skill books were rare, with drop rates of only 0.01% from common monsters. And yet, here it was. Skill book. Bramble Bind. Effect. Summons thorny vines under an enemy, rooting them in place and dealing damage equal to 10% of the player's attack per second. Lasts 10 seconds. Cooldown. 1 minute. Notes. PvP. Affected players can destroy vines by attacking them. Vine HP equals 10% of the player's max HP. Vulnerable to fire magic, which ignores durability and destroys vines instantly. Class. Druid. Owl form specialization required. Level requirement. 10. Cast type. 1 chant syllable plus 1 hand gesture. Ethan's grin widened. This is exactly what I needed. Only moments ago, he'd been worrying about how to take on the Wolf King. Now, this skill offered a solution. With its near-instant cast time, it was a perfect counter for the boss's speed. He didn't hesitate, 1 click and the skill was learned. Switching to stealth, Ethan crept toward the hill's center. Soon, he arrived at the Wolf King's hunting grounds. Surveying the area, his brow furrowed. The terrain was too cramped, with corrupted spectral wolves roaming on all sides. Fighting the boss would inevitably draw the others' attention, making the battle nearly impossible. He'd have to clear out the small fry first. For directions. For groups. 10 minutes of grueling work. Eventually, he carved out a safe zone. During the process, Ethan tested his new skill and quickly realized a key detail. Timing was everything. Bramblebind had to be cast the moment the Wolf King activated its swift stride. Otherwise, the boss's enhanced speed would make dodging easy. Taking a deep breath, Ethan positioned himself 40 meters from the Wolf King, his max casting range. For the first time across 2 lifetimes, he'd attempt a solo fight against a commander-tier boss without exploiting terrain. Earlier, he'd used basic appraisal to check its stats. The Wolf King had 34,800 HP, over 600 attack, and a moderate 200 defense. This is going to be interesting. Ethan initiated the fight with Sunburn and Lunar Beam, casting both back-to-back. -1, -24. The Wolf King howled, taking 2 powerful strides toward Ethan before pausing, its hind legs bending in preparation for a leap. Now, Ethan's hand moved swiftly. Bramblebind. Thorny vines erupted from the ground, ensnaring the Wolf King's paws just as the characteristic whirlwind of swift stride began to swirl around it. The boss struggled, growling furiously, but the vines held firm, preventing it from moving even an inch. 10 seconds passed. As the vines dissolved, the swift stride effect also faded, leaving the Wolf King to charge forward at its default speed. Though still fast, Ethan's panther form had a slight edge. He kited the beast in wide circles, forcing it to chase him hopelessly while repeatedly. When safe, he shifted into his owl form to reapply debuffs before switching back to panther form to stay ahead. The Wolf King groped angrily, unable to navigate the terrain or cut him off directly. It was nothing more than a hulking mass of fur and frustration, endlessly eating Ethan's dust. Ethan kept one eye on the Bramblebind cooldown, knowing it was identical to the boss's Swift Stride cooldown. As soon as the skill came off cooldown, he cast it again without hesitation. Timing would determine the success of this hunt. Chapter 26. Power Leveling the Group. 40 minutes later, the spectral Wolf King crashed to the ground, lifeless, its massive frame stirring up a cloud of dust. For server first kill notifications lit up the sky, but as usual Ethan opted to stay anonymous. The experience points rewarded were just 12,000 in total. Quite disappointing considering the risk. In Ethereal, experience gained from defeating monsters increased exponentially with level gaps. If a monster's level exceeded a player's by up to 5 levels, the system granted 100% bonus XP per additional level. From 6 to 10 levels higher, the bonus jumped to 200%. Beyond 10 levels? A staggering 300%. That's why, when Ethan, at level 5, took down the level 20 Swamp Leviathan, he raked in an astonishing 3000% XP bonus. For context, regular field monsters granted experience equal to 10 times their level. Elite monsters offered 50 times their level, while boss monsters rewarded 100 times. Dungeon monsters, however, provided 10 times the XP of their field counterparts, but came with challenges that no average team could overcome without flawless teamwork. Despite the XP potential, solo grinding or dungeon diving was an option only for the most skilled or reckless players. The majority had to team up, dividing the spoils. The result? Experience gains so thin they were barely worth the effort. Ethan surveyed the loot scattered across the ground, feeling his excitement quickly fade. Nothing extraordinary. Not even a single silver-tiered item. All he got were a few reinforcement stones and a bronze-tiered belt that needed appraisal. Unlike high-tier items like the Blazing Bracelet or the Primal Warstaff he'd looted from the Swamp Leviathan, lower-quality gear required appraisal. Without it, the items couldn't even be equipped. Unfortunately, Ethan couldn't return to town to appraise the belt. Right now, being a red-named player, he was barred from city gates, risking capture and imprisonment by the town guards until his sin value dropped to 0, a time sink he couldn't afford. Not that it mattered. With his loot secured, Ethan moved on, setting his sights on the next target, the level 10 Berserk Bear. Just as he was about to head out, a loud ding interrupted his thoughts. Global announcement. Player Feather has achieved the first kill of the level 10 boss, Berserk Bear, in the eastern sector of Dragonspire. Rewards will be distributed via inbox shortly. Ethan froze, his heart sinking. Then another ding followed, this time, a national announcement. Looking up at the glowing text, Ethan groaned. He should have prioritized the lower-level boss. Now, at least 100 gold coins worth of rewards had slipped through his fingers. Feather, huh? Ethan muttered, suppressing a pang of annoyance. That archer seems as good as ever even in this life. Guess the god of arrows lives up to his title. The system announcement's wording made one thing clear. Feather had taken down the Berserk Bear solo. Team efforts had different phrasing, and Ethan knew it. Still grumbling over the missed opportunity, Ethan sprinted toward the Berserk Bear's spawn point. The boss's stats flashed across his vision. It wasn't much of a threat to him now. At level 12, he had a 2-level advantage over the boss, giving him the edge. Without hesitation, he launched into battle. Minutes later, the Berserk Bear crumpled under Ethan's relentless assault, netting him a regional first kill bonus and over 10 gold coins. Among the loot was a bronze-tiered cloak, visually striking but still unappraised. With 2 bosses down, Ethan focused on strengthening his weapon. Using reinforcement stones from both battles, he pushed his weapon to plus 30. His attack power surged past 500, and his mastery stat gained 2 points. At level 12 with 41% XP progress, Ethan knew he'd soon outgrow the starter zone. But first, he needed to grind enough to leave at the earliest opportunity. The starter dungeon required a 10-player team to bypass its intricate traps and mechanisms, and soloing it was impossible, even for him. If Feather could solo a level 10 boss, Ethan needed to reach the main city before him to claim the rewards waiting there. Time was of the essence. Ethan turned his attention to grinding. Pulling groups of corrupted bears using a train strategy, he lured small clusters toward him. Despite his attacks, the monsters frequently fled mid-combat, causing him to lose progress. To keep them engaged, Ethan allowed himself to take a few hits, ensuring they stayed in combat. The process was slow and grueling. After a few waves, he had to pause, catching his breath and recovering health before continuing. After finishing off the current wave of corrupted bears, Ethan opened his friend list and sent a message to Skyblade. Get Slashblade and that paladin guy. Meet me in the level 12 monster zone. I'll power level you guys. He included his coordinates and told them to follow the main road until they reached the outer edges of the area, where he'd come to fetch them. With their pitiful level 4 stats, those 3 couldn't survive a single swipe from the Berserk Bear, let alone fend off the corrupted bears. The trio, thrilled by Ethan's offer, scrambled to make their way to him. While waiting, Ethan kept busy farming more monsters. Over an hour later, a notification popped up from Skyblade. We're here. Ethan walked out to meet them, and as expected, Skyblade looked as proud as ever. He strutted over, carrying a shield on his back and a single-handed sword at his hip. Looking at him, Ethan felt a flicker of regret about advising Skyblade to switch to a shield tank build. With that attitude, he'd probably cause chaos during any dungeon raid. Hey, legend. Skyblade greeted him with a cheeky grin. Ethan ignored him and patted Slashblade on the shoulder. Let's go. With your heals I'll be fine. You two can head back. What? Skyblade and Williams blurted out in unison, their faces a mix of disbelief and indignation. Slashblade hesitated, caught off guard. Ethan burst into laughter. Relax, I'm just messing with you. You two aren't totally useless, you'll help pull mobs. With a smirk, he sent out team invites. Ding. Slashblade has joined the party. Ding. Skyblade has joined the party. Ding. Seraph Warrior has joined the party. It was only now that Ethan noticed Williams's in-game name. Seraph Warrior. He froze for a moment. Seraph Warrior wasn't just any player, he was a legend. Though he didn't rise to prominence in the early days of Ethereal, he became a big name during the Great National War event. Along with Heaven's Dawn, he was one of the elite players who had cemented their place in history. Ethan studied him curiously. Back then, during the game's late phase, Ethan had been reduced to scavenging abandoned mines, hunting for Titanite to survive in the real world. He'd never heard Skyblade mention either Slashblade or Seraph Warrior. Did something happen to their group later? Pushing aside his doubts, Ethan led the group down the cleared path into the corrupted bear spawning grounds. He assigned Skyblade and Seraph Warrior to pull mobs, while Slashblade stayed close to Ethan as a mobile health reserve, healing him as needed. Surprisingly, the 2 lower-level players made excellent lures. From a distance, the monsters spotted them immediately, charging in packs toward the group. When the mobs entered Ethan's attack range, he unleashed Sunburn, pulling their aggro toward himself. With the threat neutralized, the two players went off to pull more monsters. At first, Skyblade and Seraph Warrior screamed for help, their panicked cries echoing across the battlefield. But once the first wave of monsters fell, and the XP notifications started flooding their screens, their terror turned to delight. With the 700% bonus for level gap kills, each player earned 378 XP per monster, a massive boost that skyrocketed their progress bars. For Ethan, the gains were very little. Solo, he would have earned 240 XP per kill. With a party, his share dropped to 108 XP. Still, the team bonus, 20% extra XP per additional party member, helped soften the blow. Without it, his losses would have been even greater. As the rest reveled in their rapid leveling, Ethan smirked. At least they were getting their fill. Chapter 27. Dominating the starter zone. Experience gain had slightly decreased, but their efficiency had skyrocketed. As soon as the monsters entered Ethan's attack range, they were instantly scorched by sunburn. Most didn't even make it halfway before they were reduced to ashes by his devastating damage output. With the massive over-level experience bonuses, the three of them hit level 5 in just 2 minutes. The jump from level 4 to 5 only required 2,720 experience points. After all, the monsters never got close enough to harm Ethan, and Slashblade, who was originally supposed to play a key role, ended up being mostly useless. Seeing that he wasn't needed, Slashblade began clearing the battlefield and collecting loot. Eventually, he even started helping to lure monsters, but his slower speed as a healer made it a risky endeavor. At Ethan's suggestion, Slashblade reluctantly returned to cleanup duty, occasionally venturing out to lure monsters when it was safe. Half an hour later, the group had reached level 7. Their progress was nothing short of remarkable, and even Ethan felt a twinge of envy. If only someone could power level him this quickly. But at level 7, their speed began to slow. The overlevel bonus had dropped to 400%, giving only 216 experience points per monster, while the experience needed for the next level had risen to 11,200 points. Still, it wasn't too bad, just about 50 more monsters to go. However, Ethan noticed the number of monsters they were pulling had started to dwindle. It seemed they had nearly cleared the area. He proposed they switch locations and start pushing toward a higher level zone. With his overwhelming damage output, not taking on higher level monsters felt like a waste. Skyblade and the others had no objections. After experiencing the thrill of rapid leveling, they were more than willing to follow Ethan's lead. After confirming their direction, the group advanced cautiously. Skyblade and Seraph Warrior moved ahead to lure monsters back to Ethan, who would obliterate them. Once an area was cleared, they pushed forward toward the next wave of enemies. By the time they reached the level 13 monster zone, the entire group had hit level 8, while Ethan's experience bar was 80% of the way to level 13. It was then that the in-game global chat exploded. 3 level 8 players had taken the top 3 spots on the leaderboard, sparking widespread attention. Mad Marksman, Archer Male, check the leaderboard. These 3 are leveling like crazy. Sunny Piglet, Paladin Female, I know, right? I was partying with them earlier. They were only level for then. Chillmage, Warlock Male, is this another bug? Someone, please tell me the trick. Sharp Vantage, Rogue Male. They're probably getting banned any second now. Ethan and his party ignored the chatter entirely. By now, they had moved into the level 14 corrupted spider zone. The spiders here were highly social, clustering in dense groups, making them perfect for their grinding strategy. The group decided to settle down and focus their efforts in the area. Ethan still benefited from the overlevel bonuses, and with his divine abilities doubling his experience gains, his leveling speed surged further. Finally, Slashblade found a role for himself, occasionally healing Ethan when needed and continuing his battlefield cleanup. For hours later, my inventory's full again, Slashblade complained. Same here, Skyblade added. Don't look at me, Seraph Warrior chimed in over the party chat. I maxed out my bag during our first run back in town. I'm running out of inventory space too. How about we call it a day? The servers are shutting down in less than an hour anyway, Ethan said, glancing at the clock. It was already past 7 p.m. Ah, come on. Let's grind until the very last second. Skyblade protested, clearly addicted to the fast-paced leveling. By now, all 3 of them had hit level 10, while Ethan had just reached level 14. On the Zone 13-14 leaderboard, the trio was dominating, 4 levels ahead of the 4th-place player. Ethan chuckled. Keep dreaming. Everyone back to town. Despite Skyblade's reluctance to use his free teleport stone, Slashblade and Seraph Warrior cheerfully bid Ethan farewell and teleported back to town. Before they logged off, Ethan reminded them in the party chat, "Sort out the valuable loot in your inventory. Keep what you need and sell or trade the rest. Also, buy large slot backpacks. Tomorrow, I'll grind with you for one more day. After that, I'm leaving the starter zone." Ethan glanced at his freshly filled experience bar. Reaching level 15 would require a hefty 65,520 experience points, but he felt confident. Taking out his once-per-day free teleport stone, Ethan activated it. The red name above his character, due to hours of monster grinding, had already disappeared. Back in the safety of Evercrest Town, the real-world sun had risen, but within Ethereal it was sunset. The dim glow of streetlights reflected off the cement walls of the town's buildings, casting long shadows. The streets were bustling as always. Top-tier level 1 common iron weapons. Perfect for all classes. 2 copper coins each, better than starter gear. A level 3 rogue shouted near the spawn area, drawing a crowd of new players to his makeshift stall. Newcomers, who started with 2 copper coins in seed money, often bought these weapons to get a slight advantage early on. They didn't realize that the same level 1 weapons were sold at the blacksmith shop on the north side of town for just 1 copper coin. A quick 5-minute jog away. Ethan smirked as he passed by. People like this rogue existed everywhere, not exactly scammers but opportunists. At least they saved you the trip. Pushing through the bustling streets, Ethan made his way to the guild hall. Earlier, when he met up with Skyblade and the others, they had sent him an invite to the newly created guild, and Slashblade had transferred the guild leader position to him. Since starter guilds didn't have permanent bases, all administrative tasks had to be handled at the guild hall. The first thing Ethan did was painfully shell out 10 gold to unlock the first page of the guild's shared vault. He deposited his unused equipment into the vault. The system automatically assessed the item's attributes and assigned a contribution cost for guild members to claim them. Next, Ethan set up a dynamic contribution system for currency donations. The Ethereal AI would adjust the exchange rate based on the fluctuating market value of gold coins. Though Ethan didn't know exactly how the system calculated it, it was impressively accurate. Finally, he configured the guild vault to allow item donations in exchange for contribution points. The system would automatically evaluate the gear's attributes and assign appropriate rewards to encourage members to participate. Chapter 28. Taking the Bear Form Quest. In Ethereal, it wasn't as simple as throwing money around to get the gear you wanted. The best equipment was usually hoarded by elite guilds for their own members, rarely making it to the open market. When something did pop up for sale, it was often low-grade gear with absurd price tags, far beyond what the average player could afford. That's where the guild vault system came into play. It was designed to address these problems perfectly. Players could earn contribution points for completing guild tasks, such as dungeon raids or quest objectives, and use those points to exchange for gear. The system evaluated the gear's attributes and assigned a fair point value, ensuring absolute equity. Of course, there were limits. Any item withdrawn from the guild vault carried a unique tag, permanently linking it to the guild. If you left the guild, the system would reclaim the item, and the contribution points spent on it would not be refunded. This system prevented malicious players from exploiting the guild by grabbing cheap gear and flipping it on the market for profit. For those with legitimate reasons to leave the guild, the higher-ups could approve their departure. In such cases, the system would reclaim their items but compensate them with gold equivalent to their contribution, deducted directly from the guild's coffers. However, players with strong loyalty to the guild rarely left, though exceptions existed. Rival guilds were always eager to poach skilled members. After finalizing the vault setup, Ethan reluctantly spent 100 gold coins to upgrade the guild to level 2. A level 1 guild could only accommodate 100 members, but at level 2, the capacity increased to 1,000. During this early stage of the game, guilds could only upgrade to level 2. Advancing to level 3 required establishing a guild base, plus an exorbitant expansion fee of 1,000 gold. Not that it mattered. Ethan didn't have a base or anywhere near that kind of amount. 1,000 gold? That was $1,800,000 in real-world currency. With everything set up, Ethan sent a message to Skyblade and Slashblade, telling them they could start recruiting. Given their current fame on the leaderboards, it wouldn't be hard to attract players. After all, for every 10 copper coins a guild member earned in the field, the guild's vault automatically gained 1 copper. Sure, Members received only a negligible boost to their contribution points from this system, but it was a win-win situation. The more members they had, the more funds the guild could collect. Ethan had no intention of footing the massive guild upgrade costs on his own. As for vetting recruits, that could wait. It was too early in the game to judge anyone's character. However, Ethan did send a list of player names to Skyblade and Slashblade, warning them to keep these people out of the guild at all costs. Those names belonged to infamous scammers and cheaters from Ethan's previous life, players who had earned a reputation for being absolute scum. Topping the list were Zachary, Game ID, Overlord, and Ivy, Game ID, Nightfall. With everything settled, Ethan glanced at the timer. Only 40 minutes left until the servers shut down for the day. Chanting a teleportation spell, he prepared to return to the forest of nature to complete his bear form quest. His body shimmered and reappeared on the shores of Lunar Lake. The breathtaking view and crisp, fresh air helped clear his mind after hours of grinding monsters. But time was running out. He didn't linger to admire the scenery, heading straight to the camp to find the NPC who issued the bear form transformation quest. As he searched, Ethan prayed he wouldn't encounter another eccentric NPC like the one from before. That guy, in owl form, had started rapping at him with a voice that sounded like nails on a chalkboard. If the performance had been remotely decent, Ethan might have let it slide, but it wasn't. It was pure noise pollution. Thankfully, the bear form druid turned out to be more grounded. After asking around, Ethan finally located the NPC, a bear-shaped druid dozing in a cave. The glowing golden exclamation mark above its head confirmed its identity. Ethan approached but didn't disturb its sleep. Instead, he waited quietly, stealing nervous glances at the clock. Only 20 minutes remained until the servers went offline. This quest was something Ethan had overheard about in his previous life, a rare hidden event. If he woke the bear druid directly, it would issue the standard transformation quest. Gather a few items, complete the task, and unlock bear form. But if he waited patiently for the druid to wake up on its own, he'd unlock a different quest, one that awarded a rare title, Dreamwalker. As Ethan anxiously watched the seconds tick by, he tried to recall where he'd first heard about this hidden quest. The details eluded him, but a nagging instinct told him this was the right approach. "Greetings, outsider." The deep rumble of a voice startled him. With just 2 minutes left before the servers shut down, the massive bear rolled over and stood up, towering above him. "Honored Bear Druid," Ethan began, carefully enunciating the quest activation phrase, "I've come to take on the bear form quest." The druid turned to face him, its golden eyes gleaming. "You have waited without disturbing my rest, unlike so many others. Because of this, I have finally seen my dreams clearly. My kin, a distant group of druids, have been calling to me, appearing in my dreams. I do not understand why. Will you enter my dreamscape and uncover the truth?" Ethan nodded without hesitation. "It would be my honor, druid. How should I proceed?" The druid scratched at the ground thoughtfully. "Return tomorrow. I will seek out the elder tree to craft a dream potion for you." As the server timer ticked down to mere seconds, Ethan grinned wryly. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Definitely a system design. He bid the bear druid farewell and logged out directly from the same spot, ensuring he could resume the quest as soon as he logged back in. After freshening up, Ethan left his room and noticed that Lila's door was already open. Then it hit him it was Monday. School was in session, and she'd mentioned yesterday that she had a class during the second period. Glancing at the clock, he cursed. 8:05 a.m. He bolted downstairs, just in time to see Lila emerging from the open kitchen, balancing 2 white porcelain plates. On each plate, toast, milk, and ham. Miss Silverwood, don't tell me this is the only thing you know how to make. At least throw in a fried egg," Ethan teased. He wasn't a fan of this kind of breakfast. He much preferred something hearty, like a breakfast burrito. Hearing his comment, Lila's cheeks flushed red as she shot him a sharp glare. Realizing he'd put his foot in his mouth, Ethan gave a sheepish laugh and quickly took the plate from her. For someone as pampered as Lila, who likely hadn't cooked a day in her life, making breakfast at all was already impressive. He couldn't really complain. "Hey Effie, I heard you disappeared from the leaderboard," Lila said as she sat down across from him. "Don't tell me the system actually booted you?" Ethan choked slightly, not at the question itself but at how quickly her tone had shifted. She'd started out calling him Ethan, and now suddenly it was Effie. The abrupt change made the hair on his arms stand on end. "What's wrong?" Lila asked, noticing his discomfort. "Could you not call me that?" Ethan said, clearly uneasy. "Why not? That's what I called you when we were kids. If you hadn't insisted on going back to the orphanage, my parents would have adopted you, and you'd be my brother for real," she said matter-of-factly. Ethan was at a loss for words. How was he supposed to argue with that? Fine, he relented. "Anyway, I'm not off the leaderboards. I'm just hidden. Only the top rankers get that privilege." Chapter 29, Focus of Envy. Oh! Ethan wasn't sure if Lila was responding to the fact that he agreed he could have been her brother, or to his commentary about the game. Either way, she lowered her head to continue eating, her eyes glinting briefly with a sly amusement. After finishing breakfast, the two of them hopped into the car to head for school. Ethan, who had earned his driver's license long ago, had once worked part-time as a designated driver to cover his tuition and living expenses. When they reached the garage and the metal door rolled up, Ethan froze in place, his jaw dropping in disbelief. The colossal beast of a vehicle that greeted him left Ethan rubbing his eyes, convinced he was seeing things. His mind dug for an explanation before the name hit him. The Predator Beast X. This thing was billed as the world's most unstoppable vehicle, capable of plowing through obstacles with ridiculous ease. Its armor was resilient enough to withstand an RPG blast, its undercarriage tough enough to endure the force of a 15-pound explosive, and its tires, even if punctured by 50 caliber rounds, could still manage another 30 miles without issue. This is your car?" Ethan stammered, his face plastered with disbelief. The image of Lila driving this monster was impossible to reconcile in his head. "Yep. Cool. Huh." Lila beamed, practically glowing with pride. "I saw it on TV once and thought it looked badass, so I casually mentioned it to my dad. I didn't think he'd actually get me one as a gift for coming to Harmony City for college." "You're sure it's street legal?" Ethan asked skeptically. As far as he knew, vehicles like this weren't sold stateside. They were the kind of thing you'd only see in war-torn regions. He doubted this was something you could just casually drive down the street. "Why wouldn't it be? I've driven it plenty of times," Lila replied, her tone puzzled by his doubt. "Well, fair enough. Forget I asked. Your dad's something else, huh?" Ethan muttered. If this thing was on the road, her dad must have pulled some serious strings. He climbed into the driver's seat, only to find that the interior was disturbingly girly. Pink seat covers, floral air fresheners, and a plush unicorn hanging from the rearview mirror. As he prepared to start the engine, he noticed Lila still standing outside, pouting with puffed cheeks and glaring at him. Ethan instantly realized he'd said something wrong again. Leaning out of the window, he quickly corrected himself. "Our dad is amazing. Now get in the car, my dear sister." Her frown melted into a bright grin as she hopped into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life with a thunderous growl, though the sound was impressively muted once the doors and windows were sealed. It wasn't completely silent, but it was quiet enough to feel comfortable. Ethan glanced at the speedometer, 240 miles per hour. That couldn't be right. The manufacturer specs for this thing capped out at 120 miles per hour, didn't they? Clicked. Not only had Lila's dad pulled strings to legalize this tank of a vehicle, but he'd also had it modified. The Predator Beast X rumbled onto the streets, attracting every set of eyes. At over 20 feet long, nearly 9 feet wide, and standing 8.7 feet tall, this beast didn't belong on city roads. What the hell is that? Looks like a military vehicle, but it's got civilian plates? Must be some rich kid showing off. Man, karma's gonna strike this dude fast. This thing's insane. I wish my old man buy me one too. Even the most aggressive SUVs on the road seemed to shrink back, hurriedly clearing a path for the rolling behemoth. Traffic cops stood dumbfounded, frantically checking their systems to confirm the vehicle's legality. Soon they arrived near the campus. Lila suggested parking in the lot closest to the school, not wanting to attract too much attention. Ethan couldn't help but smirk. "You? Not wanting to attract attention? Sure. Your dad gave you a tank just because you thought it was cool." He shook his head, amused. It's just a ride to school, not an invasion. It took several laps around the parking lot before Ethan finally found a spot. Well, not exactly a spot, more like 3 spots. The Predator Beast X ate up every inch of space, leaving the lot manager staring slack-jawed as Ethan and Lila casually strolled away. The two entered the university campus, laughing and chatting as they made their way to Lila's lecture hall. As they got closer to the building, Ethan noticed people staring and whispering as they passed. "Hey, is that girl from our department? Don't you know her? She transferred in about a month ago. She's gorgeous. Easily rivals Ivy in looks." "You must be out of the loop. Ivy's just a department queen. This freshman, Lila Silverwood, is dominating the campus forums. She's giving even Miss Hawthorne a run for her money." "Wait, Celeste Hawthorne? The ice queen of the whole campus. Shoo, keep your voice down. Do you want to attract trouble?" But who's the guy? Is he her boyfriend?" Their whispered gossip reached Ethan's ears loud and clear, startling him. Since when had his hearing become so sharp? Now that he thought about it, his stamina had also been off the charts lately. It all seemed to trace back to moving into the villa and using the VR capsule. Ethan turned toward the group of whisperers and shot a knowing smile at the one who'd asked if he was Lila's boyfriend. Did he just smile at me? Did you guys see that? You think he heard us talking? Get real. There's no way he could hear us from that far. Anyway, what level are you at now?" one of them asked, shifting the topic to ethereal as Ethan and Lila walked closer. "I'm level 5. You guys should be around the same, right? I heard the class rep hit level 6 already." "Crazy, huh?" said a bespectacled student in a striped gray shirt, speaking louder this time. Ethan and Lila exchanged a glance, stifling their amusement. Lila's thoughts danced with pride. They have no idea. The first player in the world to hit level 14 just walked past them. And I'm already at level 8, all thanks to him. Her dimples deepened as a small, smug smile lit up her face. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around Ethan's and walked past the group, radiating confidence. The students stared after them, frozen in stunned silence. Ethan wasn't the type to keep a low profile. In his past life, his arrogance had drawn plenty of attention, eventually leading to his fall from grace. This time around, he'd learned to be more cautious and protective of himself. But stirring up a little envy now and then? That was still fair game. Besides, he wasn't exactly complaining about the way Lila pressed herself against his arm. Whether she was doing it on purpose or not, Ethan couldn't tell, and honestly he didn't care to find out. "I'll walk you to your classroom," Ethan offered. "Don't you have class?" Lila asked, tilting her head. "Do I look like the type to pick morning classes?" Ethan replied with a smirk. "Good point. Someone like you would definitely load up on afternoon classes, game all night and sleep until noon," Lila teased, feigning a look of disgust. "Oh yeah? What about you?" Ethan shot back, putting on an exaggeratedly menacing expression. "You're one to talk. Have you ever signed up for a first period class? Aren't you the queen of sleeping in?" With that, he wrapped an arm around her waist, his hand accidentally slipping towards her lower abdomen. Lila stiffened for a moment but didn't pull away. Instead, she playfully swatted his hand away with a mock glare. "Bro, that's called beauty sleep. Thank you very much." Ethan shivered at her calling him bro, goosebumps prickling his skin. He couldn't decide whether he loved it or hated it. Lila noticed his flustered expression and burst out laughing. "Come on, aren't you supposed to walk me to class? We're gonna be late if you keep stalling." Chapter 30. Sweet Revenge. The two strolled along the lakeside path, heading toward the School of Finance building. It was like every other department building on campus, modern, well-equipped, and bustling with activity. What set these buildings apart, however, were the training rooms on every floor, a mandatory addition made nationwide the year prior. Physical fitness and combat training had become a compulsory subject for all college students, surpassing even the most theoretical cultural courses in importance. Inside the classroom Lila was heading to, Ethan peeked through the window. His brow lifted. Sure enough, the rumors were true. This department was packed with women. Out of a class of 40 students, only 3 were male. Ethan couldn't help but wonder. Did those guys end up adapting to the estrogen-heavy environment? Or did it eventually turn them into cross-dressing divas? He chuckled to himself, though a pang of bitter nostalgia hit him. His ex-girlfriend, Ivy, had been the campus queen in this department. Not once had she let him accompany her to class, making this his first time seeing the paradise she used to describe. But as Lila waved goodbye and walked into the room, the charm of the place dimmed. The other women paled in comparison to Lila's graceful elegance, like a rare orchid amidst ordinary blooms. Yet Ethan knew better than to be fooled by appearances. Lila wasn't just some harmless girl-next-door type. He'd seen the truth in his last life. 3 thugs had burst into his old apartment, pinning him down and shattering his legs. But Lila had been there too, and she'd snapped. One slap cracked a thug's skull. One punch left an arm bent at an insane angle. One kick shattered a kneecap. In the end, the three assailants walked away worse off than Ethan himself. And then there was him, a failure at combat training, barely passing his freshman year. Now a sophomore, he still wasn't sure how to scrape through this year's classes. His problem? He'd grown up malnourished, his body never properly developing. Sure, it wasn't immediately obvious from his height, but inside, he was weak. Even Celeste Hawthorne, the cold and merciless senior who served as the combat class assistant, didn't have the heart to go hard on him. Her verdict? Hopeless. Desperate, Ethan had once sought advice from a local holistic doctor. The old man's diagnosis still rang in his ears. Congenital malnourishment, compounded by years of neglect. Exercise lightly or risk permanent damage. He shook his head, banishing the thoughts. If weakness defined his past, it wouldn't dictate his future. Ethan wandered out of the finance building, found a shady bench by the lake and sat. His classes didn't start until the afternoon, so he figured he'd wait for Lila to finish her lecture and grab lunch together. The campus was picturesque, with a sprawling lake at its center. Teaching buildings circled the water, while lush gardens lined its shores. Rows of willow trees swayed gently in the breeze, their reflection rippling across the lake's surface. At the lake's heart lay an island covered in peach trees. Every spring, the blossoms filled the air with their sweet fragrance, earning the spot its nickname, Peach Blossom Island. Everything looked just as he remembered, yet it all felt different now. His rebirth had altered more than just the timeline. It had fractured the nostalgia that clung to this place. As he rested on the bench, the quiet serenity of campus life began to lull him to sleep. Ethan didn't know how much time had passed when a sudden kick jolted him awake. Blinking, he looked up, half expecting to see Lila. Instead, his stomach dropped. Ivy! The familiar face froze him in place, stirring a mix of disbelief and resentment. Memories he tried to bury surged to the surface, and Ethan shot to his feet. Before he could speak, Ivy's sharp voice cut him down. We're done, Ethan. Why are you here? Stalking me won't change anything. She jabbed a finger at him, her expression twisted with disdain. Do yourself a favor and disappear. Now. Ethan's hands trembled as he fought the urge to retaliate. Logic told him to let it go, to rise above the pettiness. But another part of him wanted to lash out, to make her pay. If it hadn't been for her spilling his address to Zachary, he wouldn't have ended up living like a stray dog. Nearby whispers reached his ears. Wait, that's Ivy's ex? No way. I thought she was dating Zachary now. The whispers from the crowd grew louder. Hey, wasn't that guy always hanging out with Zachary? Weren't they like, best friends? Oh yeah, now that you mention it. Wow, this is some juicy gossip. The student council president, Zachary, picking up his own buddy's leftovers? Talk about scandalous. The murmurs clearly reached Ivy's ears as her face stiffened. Ethan stood silently, watching her expression shift between anger and embarrassment. She'd always kept their relationship hidden, even when they'd dated for a year. No one had known except Zachary. At that moment, a sleek sports car pulled up nearby. It idled for a moment, the low hum of its engine drawing everyone's attention, before driving off without anyone getting out. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He knew exactly who was in that car, Zachary. Ivy must have realized it too. Her face paled, then darkened, and she pointed at Ethan, her voice trembling with fury. You! Before she could finish, someone bumped into her from behind, sending her stumbling. Her sunglasses fell to the ground, and she nearly lost her balance. Oh no! I'm so sorry, ma'am. A cheerful, apologetic voice rang out. Ivy's anger flared as she spun to face the intruder. But before she could unleash her fury, her face froze in shock. A young woman, stunning, radiant, and easily outshining Ivy in every way, was now holding Ethan's arm, their fingers interlocked as if they'd done it countless times before. Who are you? Ivy's voice faltered. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions, just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.